Hey everybody, what's going on? It is James here with Crypto Common Sense, and today is October 22nd. I wanted to sit down and shoot a quick update on what I'm seeing in the market, and also talk about the fact that if you want to learn to trade and you want to be a trader, you don't need to concern yourself with these macro movements unless you're trading macro time frames. So if we take a look at the Bitcoin monthly chart, it's really nothing to talk about. Bitcoin has been ranging since June, right? Came down and just been moving sideways. It's at historically low volatility, and that means that that's probably like a spring that's coiling up and going to eventually break out one way or the other. And time will tell which way that is. I have a lot of people asking me right now, is the bottom in? Is the bottom in? Well, number one, I don't know if the bottom's in because I don't have a crystal ball. So I couldn't tell you. What I can tell you is that there's nothing technically or fundamentally that would make me change my opinion that I released last year, which is that Bitcoin will eventually revisit the $8,000 to $12,000 levels. And when I released that opinion, I said that was based on the stock market not completely melting down. And the stock market has since performed very poorly. And I think that it's entirely likely that if the stock market continues to underperform, that $8,000 to $12,000 is probably a overly optimistic outlook on where the bottom will be. I think Bitcoin will quite frankly go lower, much lower than $8,000 to $12,000 if the stock market breaks down. Okay, if the stock market doesn't break down, that's a different story. So as far as Bitcoin goes, I think right now it's very dangerous to try to get, on one side or the other, unless you're already in a trade. Like I've been in puts now for a few months. So when I got in, my puts price was much higher. And so I have a lot of breathing room in case it starts to move back up. I would still be able to close those puts and all that kind of stuff. But if you're entering new trades down here, you got to be very careful because even if this is going lower, you still have a lot of room where this could have some kind of counter trend rally and go back up temporarily, a bear market rally. And bear market rallies tend to be really strong rallies. Okay. To give you an idea, if we look at a weekly chart and we go back to just 2017, this first bear market rally from its low to its high was 65%. The second rally down here in February of 2018 was 100%. It literally doubled in price. And unfortunately, I was one of the people that did fall for this rally. Being a new trader with less than 12 months experience, I thought the bottom was probably in, and I ended up buying Bitcoin at about $9,900 or so, which long term was fine, but short term was not a great buy. Again, another rally here, bear market rally, 54%, another rally here, 46%. And that's what makes bear markets so difficult, because if you are somebody that's really bullish on an asset in the bigger picture, every time it starts to move up, you kind of panic a little bit, like you're being left behind, like, oh no, and you get FOMO and you FOMO in, and then, the market dumps on you. And so you have to be aware of that, especially if you're trying to take shorts. You could get caught in one of these bear market rallies and potentially lose a lot of money, and then price go down and you've lost money and missed the move down to boot. This is a range, and even though it could be, argument can be made that it's actually a descending triangle, I don't worry too much about the quote unquote shapes. I just worry about the fact that it's ranging, and ranges can realistically break out either direction. This could break down and be a continuation of this leg here, but it could very well also move back up and start retesting some of these old levels of supply. And this could end up being a double bottom that takes some kind of really big bounce in the middle of a bear market, and then we could still potentially get more downside later. It's possible that that might happen. So again, I think you just have to be careful. But I also think you really need to look at this chart and understand just how tight of a range we're in. This is a weekly chart, meaning these are weekly candlesticks. And look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks where Bitcoin has been in this super tight little range down here. I mean, look at that. you don't see hardly anything like that in all of Bitcoin's history on this chart. It's really strange to get into a super tight range like that. And so that leads me to believe that when it does break out one way or the other, it's probably going to be pretty explosive. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If we put some EMAs on there, we can put a 200-week EMA on there. We can see that we're still sitting underneath that EMA, which is a very bearish sign. And in fact, that EMA is now turning down. If we go back in Bitcoin's history, we'll use Bitstamp because there's more history on Bitstamp. You're going to see, I'll put it on a log chart just so it's a little easier to see what's going on. See this? Turned down maybe a little bit right here in the bottom of 2018 before moving up. But other than that, that's really about it. So could this be a bottom in Bitcoin? Well, it could. I'm not a bull on Bitcoin, but it could be a bottom. I mean, we do see some similarities. We see a range could potentially be accumulation at this old high back here. I just think it's lacking the indication that it's accumulation. When you look for accumulation, what you're typically looking for is a lot of buying volume. So big green volume bars down here that are indicating that there's buying happening. And what happens is you have all that buying happening and it's staying the same price because you have people selling into those buyers, but the buyers are absorbing all of that supply. And when that supply runs out, then of course price skyrockets up. We're not seeing that. So this range to me looks more like people just simply not interested. The bulls who are still in there are just kind of complacent, like, you know, it is what it is. I'm a long-term hodler or whatever. And the bears are kind of like, I'm not going to short this because, you know, it's been in this range for weeks now and I want to wait and see what happens. And so I really think this range is more a result of just lack of interest. I also think that part of the lack of interest in cryptocurrency right now comes down to people have accepted something that I've been saying for years, which is crypto is not a risk-off asset. It is not a hedge against inflation. It's not any of these things that Bitcoin bulls had hoped it would be, at least not yet. And so people have started to realize that if they want to trade crypto and Bitcoin, they really have to look at the stock market. And especially for people who are in the US or people who have the ability to trade US stocks, it doesn't take long to make the leap in the realization that if I have to watch the US stock market in order to trade cryptocurrency, why don't I just trade the US stock market? And that's kind of, what happened with me. It's why I don't trade crypto near as much as I used to, because if I go and trade crypto, I've got these exorbitant fees, right? Every trade, they're taking a % of my trade, which is ridiculous. If I go take a day trade on TD Ameritrade or Robinhood or sites like that, I do my day trading on TD Ameritrade, but Robinhood, is, I know, popular with some people. You go day trade there, there are no fees. And it makes a big difference. Some people say, oh, fees aren't that bad. Well, it depends on the size that you're trading with and how often you're trading. I can tell you from experience that when you're looking at your statements and realizing you're paying $1,000 and $2,000 a week in fees, it hurts, right? It really hurts. And then you instantly realize, well, wow, if I just remove the fees, that's an instant increase in my bottom line. And I think a lot of people have woke up to that reality, and that's why they're not trading crypto as much. They're trading the QQQ, which is, of course, an ETF for part of the NASDAQ. Look at that. Why wouldn't I just trade this instead of Bitcoin? It works the same way. It works in the same principles: supply and demand, support levels, resistance levels, Fibonacci levels, right? Retracements, counter trend rallies, all that good stuff. We can see that this too is its 200-week moving average. It is starting to flatten out, and we can see that it retested it a couple of weeks ago, getting a little bounce here. But this has been in a pretty obvious downtrend, which has made making money on it very, very easy. For example, I bought puts on this. I bought puts when it was around $320. Why? Well, because to me, that looked like a counter trend rally. You're in a downtrend, right? Should be a lower high. Takes this out. Okay, then I'm wrong. I can close those puts, take the loss, and admit that. But I wasn't wrong. And boom, it dumped. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. You don't need years and years of experience. You can recognize an uptrend, it looks like stairs. You can recognize a downtrend, it looks like stairs. And the old saying, buy the dip, well, in an uptrend, that's true. And then obviously the cliche is, in a downtrend, you sell the rip. So to make money in a bear market, you're doing the same thing you did in a bull market, just in reverse. When it goes up on one of these counter trend rallies, you look for ways to play a bearish bet. It may be buying puts. It may be taking short positions. It may be taking debit spreads. There's several ways you can go about it, but that's all there is to it. Like, worrying about this market and what Bitcoin's going to be worth a year from now or 5 years from now, that's really a fool's game, because you don't know. Nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. Warren Buffett doesn't know. Mark Cuban, who suddenly fancied himself an expert on crypto, it seemed like, he doesn't know. The social media quote unquote gurus, they don't know. Like, nobody knows. We can all have our opinions. Some of our opinions are based in reality, based on technical analysis. Some opinions are based on hope and, dreams that have no basis in reality. Like the people who are talking about, I saw somebody the other day saying that you can buy one Bitcoin today and nobody in your family would ever worry about money again, and nobody in your children's family or your children's children. And I'm just thinking, now, in what world can you justify that viewpoint? That may happen. It's not impossible. But in what world today, with the information available to us, can you justify that viewpoint? You cannot. It's based completely on hopes and dreams and nonsense. All right? So let's look at one more chart. I don't want the video to be too long. Let's look at the market cycle chart. I'll just pull it up from my list over here. So let's take the indicators off and just look at this chart. Again, this was mocked up on a 3-day chart, so it looked like this. So this is our bubble chart. This is Bitcoin versus the QQQ. This was our euphoria phase, our complacency phase. This very well could be our anxiety phase. This is what I was thinking. I was thinking this was probably denial down here, and I was thinking that we were going to get some kind of bounce back up to test these levels up here, and then more downside that would take us down into this old demand zone down here. And I still think that's probably what's happening, but I've been a little bit underwhelmed by how Bitcoin has performed versus the QQQ. It's much weaker than what I really would have anticipated at this point. And so, it is possible that anxiety is not over here, that this over here is actually just now anxiety, in which case, if you look at the chart, you're typically not going to get a big pump there. You're just going to get consolidation and then a breakdown. And so if that's the case, it could be that Bitcoin breaks down into this level. The bounce here could be that denial bounce, which you're seeing right through here in the chart. And then the panic and capitulation phase might actually take this thing below that zone back down to like the 2018 lows. And the reason that this is so important is to understand is because this is Bitcoin versus the QQQ. This is not Bitcoin versus the US dollar. So let's say that while Bitcoin is falling versus the QQQ itself is also falling versus the US dollar. That's the scenario where Bitcoin loses that $8,000 to $12,000 level. And more than likely in that case, it would revisit the bottom levels in 2018. And if the stock market gets really bad, talking like .com bubble type of bad, then we could very possibly see Bitcoin really go all the way back down to like $1,000 or possibly even lower. But I think $1,000 would be an interesting place for Bitcoin. There is an old volume gap down around that level that people have all forgotten. Not all people, but people have all but forgotten about by now. And if we go back to just a regular Bitcoin chart, I can show you that really quickly. So if we put a volume profile on the chart, we want a visible volume profile, and we go all the way out here. You see it right here. So that's down around $3,000. There's that gap there. That point of control is right around $1,500. And so if we kind of zoom in a bit, you can start to see how that market cycle, that 2017 top, It never actually came back down to this, $1,000 level or so, this huge leg. There was some speculation from some parties that that happened because when Bitcoin started falling, the Tether, company behind Tether basically started just printing tons and tons of Tether, trying to manipulate the market back up. Now, whether that's the case or not, I do not know. I have no way to prove that or disprove that. But there was some speculation that that might have been what happened, why it didn't naturally go down and fill in this area here. But if we do get like a .com type of bubble, like I said, it is, possible. It's not outside of the realm of possibility to go back down and fill in this gap. And, people will say, well, you hate Bitcoin, James. I do not hate Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin did get down to those levels, depending on what was going on, I would very likely look at purchasing some. Again, depending on what was going on at that time. Because even though I personally believe right now, given the information that I have available, even though I personally believe that 69,000 very well may be the all-time high on Bitcoin to come, it will never be taken out. I also believe that even if that does end up being the all-time high for good, that Bitcoin will probably have a future market cycle where it does make another run. It just falls short of that particular high because this high happened on the tail end of a more than decade-long bull market. And so it could be that maybe it takes it out 10 years from now or 15 years from now or something, who knows. But I do think that if Bitcoin fell down to, say, around $1,000, just hypothetically, and again, not saying it's going to, but if it did, I personally think, again, given the information that I have available to me today, it seems like I would want to buy Bitcoin there with the intention of riding it back up maybe to $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 in another market cycle where I can make a 10x or 20x or 30x return. I don't need Bitcoin to go to 60,000 or 80,000 or $1 million to make money. I just need it to move, right? It can move down and I can make money on the move down, which I have been doing because, again, I bought puts. And I also have puts on Bybit. So for those of you in the U.S., you can take a look at Bybit, which is an ETF for Bitcoin. It's on the U.S. stock market. Again, it helps to avoid some of those fees and things. But, I can obviously still make money when it goes back up, if it goes back up, without being like a Kool-Aid drinking crypto kid. And anybody that believes in crypto and is super gung-ho on it, I'm not making fun of them. That's perfectly fine. Everybody's got to do their own thing. But when I say a Kool-Aid drinking crypto kid, I'm referring to the people who are just absolutely adamant that it has to go up, that nothing could possibly stop it. And, they're oblivious, delusional, whatever you want to call them, in the fact that they think it's guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed. There is nothing guaranteed. It's not guaranteed to go down, and it's certainly not guaranteed to go up. Anything is possible. But yeah, that's the video. It's fairly long, but I don't do very many of these anymore, maybe 1 month or so. So I thought I'd sit down and just kind of give some down-to-earth analysis of what the market looks like to me and try to answer that question on everybody's mind, is the bottom in. And I know that everybody wants a definitive yes or no, but anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen is either delusional or they're lying to you, because nobody knows. I would say right now you need to keep a very close eye on the stock market, the U.S. stock market. Keep a very close eye on the U.S. dollar, and also keep a very close eye on the Fed and what they're up to, because when they manipulate these interest rates, that has a direct impact on the stock market, which has that trickle-down effect into the other smaller markets like cryptocurrency. With all that being said, I am obviously just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, and that means that nothing in this video is financial advice. You should always go out and do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, precious metals, Forex, or any other tradable asset. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check the description for a link where you can join my training and my indicators. I believe those will help you learn to trade and be more successful at it. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, reminding you all to please trade safe, and I'll see you in the next video.